Thank you very much for being on the programme. Two ministers resigning, saying that they are going to be quitting ahead of the next election as well, James Heappey and Robert Halfon. I mean, what does that say about the state of the Conservative Party?
Well, James and Robert are both two great talents for the party, and I've worked with Rob quite a bit. He's been a fantastic champion for further education, skills, apprenticeships, right from when he was a backbencher to chairing the Education Committee when I was on it, to 2 stints as a minister. So it will be sad to see him go, but he's been the MP for coming up 14 years, and he was actually first selected as the candidate for Harlow back in 1999, so I think he's done a fair stint.
There's a bit more to it than that, though, isn't there? I mean, I know Harlow quite well. I lived there for 6 months. It's a bellwether. He won in 2010, and he's quitting because he knows Labour's going to take it next time. Same with James Heappey. 9,000 majority in Wales, the Lib Dems will be licking their lips at that. It says something about the state of the party, doesn't it?
I think if you look at the MPs that left at the last election in 2019, their average tenure was about 14 years. Now, people leave for all sorts of reasons.
Come on, you know that this says a lot about the state of the party. You know that.
If you read Rob Halfon's letter, he's hugely proud of what he's done for the people of Harlow. He's also a huge supporter of the Prime Minister, which is made very clear in his letter, and I've no doubt he'll continue to be one.
I mean, you, I think, were elected in 2019, so you're kind of a relative newbie.
Yeah.
You know, is it a bit like, turning up at a party finally and finding that everyone's leaving?
Not quite. It's certainly been a very eventful period. When we first arrived, people said, oh, it's going to be brilliant for you guys because politics will be really normal. The Brexit deadlock has been broken and you'll be able to get on with normal domestic issues. And 12 weeks later, we were in lockdown with the pandemic, and the combination of that and the war in Ukraine and death of Queen Elizabeth and cost of living and so on, a lot has been packed into these 4 years. And people like Rob and James had been there for quite a number of years before that. So I can't blame them for wanting to go and do something else while they've got time.
You say that Robert Halfon was very supportive of Rishi Sunak. Of course, the two are close. James Heappey, it feels like, does have some issues with the government's policy, specifically on defence. He's been calling, hasn't he, for the government to hit its target of spending 2.5% of GDP on defence. Oh,
and I think the Prime Minister and the rest of the government have been clear that that is something that we want to do when it's economically possible to do so.
That's the key bit, though, isn't it? Because James Heappey is saying, look, we need to do this now. Look at the threats in the world, look at the state of the armed forces. We cannot meet our defence commitments unless we spend more money on defence. That is a clear differentiation, isn't it?
Well, James Heappey is a great champion for defence and hugely respected on all sides of the House. But you're absolutely right that the point I made was when it's economically responsible to do so, because that's the key difference between us and the Labour Party, that we do things when they are genuinely affordable and we have clear plans to do so, and they make all sorts of commitments, like decarbonising the energy grid by 2030, which we've just found out will cost £116 billion.
It's about priorities for spending, though, isn't it? And James Heappey is saying that right now the government is not prioritising defence spending the way that it should.
I think you've seen considerable amounts of money go into defence.
So he's wrong, then,
an integrated review. I mean, James is a champion for defence. I would expect him to champion defence and call for more money to go into it. That's what all departmental ministers do for their particular areas. But the Prime Minister has been clear that he too shares James's commitment to having a strong defence, and we will put as much money into it as long as it is affordable to do so.
Now, you've got an announcement today on funding for special needs. What's the plan?
What we're doing today is announcing £850 million going to local authorities across the country to help them create more special school places, because we know that some children with special educational needs can have their needs met in mainstream schools if their needs are identified early enough, but we know that some other children will always need that specialist provision. And what we're doing today is part of creating 60,000 more special school places. We've already done some of that, and the money today will help us achieve that in the coming years.
Is there, I guess, is today a bit of a recognition that some parents have struggled to get the support that their children need?
Well, as a constituency MP, I have had conversations with many parents in my constituency that who feel that getting the support for their children is too often a war of attrition. Now, that is a war that any parent would wage, but it's a war that no parent should have to. And that's why we've been putting in £2.6 billion to transform the special educational needs system. When we came to power, if you looked at the past 13 years of the Labour government, you actually saw a decline in the number of children in special school places from 93,000 to 89,000, whereas what we're doing now is creating 60,000 more places, some of them already created, more to come with this 850 million today, to make sure that parents can get the right support at the right time in the right place.
You're talking about the need for special school places, but there's also, of course, another issue with special needs about trying to support children in the existing school system. You're talking about the constituents that you speak to. You know, I'm on the sort of school run an awful lot. I talk to some parents with friends and other parents who have children with additional needs. And one thing that they say a lot is that it takes so long for them to get the funding that they need, that by the time that the school gets the funding in place to support their child, it's almost time for them to leave and go to another school. What kind of delay do you think is acceptable?
Well, I don't want to see any delays at all. And last year we published our improvement plan to set out how we were going to change that experience for parents. Because the biggest issue with the special educational needs system is inconsistent outcomes in different parts of the country. We've never had a national system for special educational needs where you consistently got the same level of support wherever you were in the country. And that's what our improvement plan is creating, including looking at how the EHCP form that you often need to get that support can be standardised, digitised, and made consistent for parents all over the country.
There's just something else that I wanted to touch on while I've got you as the kind of Minister for Families, for, for children, etc. Because there is obviously a lot of debate going on at the minute about the declining population, ageing population, the fact that people are having children later or having less children. Miriam Cates, Conservative MP, has been quite outspoken on this. She says that actually, parents need to, or young people need to face up to the fact that actually they need to start having kids a bit earlier. Do you agree with her?
I think that's a decision for each family, but you're absolutely right. There has been a decline in the birth rate. That has led to some primary schools closing in different parts of the country, including some nurseries in the childcare area that I'm responsible for. What we're doing with our single biggest ever investment in childcare is enabling working families to know that they'll be able to get 30 hours of free childcare every week from when their children are 9 months old until they start school. Childcare is, as you doubtless know, one of the biggest cost pressures facing working families at the moment. We're going to double the amount we spend on it to support families.
So do you think that perhaps is putting off some families from having kids?
I've certainly seen some polling that suggests that one of the concerns that some people who might like children have is about the cost, including of childcare, and that's why we're putting so much money into it.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.